Hi, everyone. This is Donna Andersen, author of lovefraud.com and host of the True Lovefraud Stories podcast. Today, our topic is recovery from profound trauma and betrayal. That is exactly what happened in our Kimberly Lucas story. The woman tried to kill her 2 children and succeeded with one of them. The child's mother, Jackie Jameson, and her young brother were left to pick up the pieces. How do you do that? I asked my good friend, Dr. Denise McDermott, an adult and child psychiatrist, to talk about recovery from such a tragedy. Dr. Denise has been in private practice since 2001 and has more than 40,000 hours of clinical expertise. She is passionate about bridging science, spirituality, and mental wellness, and hosts her own award-winning podcast called The Dr. Denise Show. Kimberly Lucas was convicted of first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During the sentencing hearing, Jackie Jameson delivered a passionate victim impact statement, describing her anguish and her resilience. Just before our conversation, Dr. Denise and I listened to her statement together. Jackie Jameson's victim impact statement is absolutely heartbreaking, and I get choked up when I hear it. How did it affect you?
Well, I just listened to it and I feel a little bit speechless, and how it affects me is such a multiplicity of feelings, so much like why did this have to happen? How could someone that you love, how could this trauma ever happen? It's like a bunch of whys and then just deep sadness. And then just listening to the statement, I was blown away with the amount of courage, faith, the alchemy of all these like complex grief. There's just so much to unpack.
So, let's start with talking about what happens to people who are in this situation. You know, when someone has this kind of trauma happen to them, what do they experience psychologically, emotionally, and even physically?
Well, I think listening to the statement, it was so well done. I feel like each person's different in the way they experience grief, loss, shock. And I feel like your body, it's like you're not even connected in your body. It's like there's so many feelings that there can be physiologic increased heart rate, panic. People can go through periods of time where it's like acute stress that can change into post-traumatic stress. So each person's going to process loss and trauma differently. And so different people might decide not to eat. They might just withdraw completely. And from the statement, it sounds like a multiple of those feeling states did happen. And I think the most important thing is to just take it one day at a time and really get the professional help that you need. And that's going to be a little bit different for each person.
So how does the sense of betrayal affect the survivor's experience when something like this has happened, where it's not an accident, where it was done purposely and it was done by someone who you loved?
Well, betrayal in itself is such a really strong statement. And when we look at betrayal, we look at being betrayed by someone that we loved that, hurt an innocent victim. But then we also look at, if we were to do our own life review, if someone were, and to ask myself, what was going on with my own awareness and my own self-love? And did I also do some self-betrayal? Because oftentimes when there's domestic violence, there's multiple events that happen before that are signs that someone should leave. So it's very complex. The betrayal is multifaceted. It's betraying yourself for not loving yourself enough to be in a healthier relationship. It's betrayal for someone that you love, that you would want to have a healthy relationship and have that person protect you. You also feel like when there's children involved, especially this was like you betrayed the child that's no longer here. You betrayed any of the survivors. And so there's just the feeling of betrayal is, I feel like all feelings need to be experienced, but then to get through it, you need to know how to use your feeling state to get healthier, get happier, and have more inner peace.
So how does somebody do that?
Well, if depending on where someone is, we're here, planet Earth is a very big planet, and I'm sure the audience is going to be broad. So hopefully someone has not only a good team of doctors that can make sure that you're physically okay, because sometimes you do go into shock, but you might have different belief systems. People can go and seek mental health. They can see a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. There's also, if people are in a situation that they're trying to get out of, there's, places for domestic violence. And I feel like if someone has a belief in something bigger than themselves, there's different leaders, spiritual leaders, reaching out to family. It's really important. Most important thing is to remember you're not alone and to not isolate. And there's times when people might be in such shock that talking about it could help, but for other people, they might need to wait a month. They might not even believe that it happened. So getting the right, I would say, a full biological, psychological, and social team together is really important. And it also looks like pacing yourself, meaning if you're working and you have mental health days, or just communicating that you're going to need some time to heal and to process grief, it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a village.
So where does somebody start?
Well, they need to start with just taking care of themselves. Because I think one of the hardest things to do after any sort of trauma, if you're in shock like this, sometimes it's hard to even find the will to want to live. So I think the self-care and just making sure you're getting meals, you're getting sleep, you're just doing the basic activities of daily living. And it's literally moment to moment, getting to the next moment. Because it's like a huge reality shift. It's like, it's unimaginable. No one ever imagines someone being murdered. No one ever imagines. I mean, this is something that it's so personal, but you have to start with your own self-care.
And what would be the next step? You mentioned getting professional help or seeking spiritual guidance. So it's just whatever the person feels would work for them. Is that the approach?
Well, I think that, in all my years of experience, I have dealt in my practice with people where maybe a parent, I've had people where they've lost loved ones to suicide. I've had people have homicidal threats. And I think if you're someone who's just experienced being, losing someone to murder, of course, there's going to be a legal team involved. So you have to have the right professional legal team so that you feel like there's justice and that you're safe. I think the basics, food, shelter, clothing, and safety are important. And I do think that there should be a whole team. Like, you should have the legal team covered so justice is on its way, or of hope. You should seek mental health counseling and therapy, and that's going to look different. Some people believe that can help. Some people want to go to their spiritual leader. So I think it's very personal.
And how about a survivor's friends and family? What can they do to help the person through this experience?
I think initially it's going back to just like the moment to moment. I think initially the magnitude of if you're feeling so distraught and so full of grief, but you still are fortunate to still have, in this situation, a child still living, you really need to figure out a way just to get through and ask family and friends for help. I could see neighbors doing meal prep. I could see neighbors coming over and asking, can we run an errand for you? Can we do pick up or drop off? And if it's a very tight family, I think there could be family systems where the family members might need to go to get some professional help too, so that the whole family system can heal. Because when you're close to family members, your pain becomes their pain. So not only does the parent in this situation need to take care of themselves, but also you need to make sure the child's getting mental health help. And family and friends are all going to have different ways that they can show up for you. So some people can do it through acts of service. Some people can do it through their words or kindness. And depending on your own unique neurostyle, maybe it could be hard for you to ask for help. So I think one of the most important things is to not isolate, and then maybe strategize which family members can help with certain tasks or certain things when you're in this really intense grief state. I also know that sometimes the very first month of any type of trauma, whether it's a loss, whether it's a life transition, a lot more people are there and there for you. But you might need to reach out a couple months out and say, I'm still struggling. I need more help. So I think remembering to ask for help is very important.
Okay. So as people move through the recovery process after something like that, is it possible to learn, or what can be learned from a tragic loss like this?
So I'm just going to say, how can we heal from something so unimaginable? And I think remembering that we're not alone and finding other people that maybe have had unimaginable losses, and remembering that we're all here having a human experience and that unimaginable sufferings happen. And I feel like it's so hard to think about. It's hard to even, for me, because I just listened to this statement, I just want to honor the sacred memory of anyone that anyone's lost. And that really the biggest lesson to be learned is how precious life is. And really living in this moment and remembering every moment on earth. We don't know how long we're going to be here, whether it's from just dying of natural causes, a tragedy, an illness, a diagnosis, cancer. We don't know, so really being grateful for this moment, and then doing self-reflection at any moment of now as to how I can show up more in peace, more authentic to myself and others. And it starts with an awareness, and it always starts with self-love. And then the next step, if we're blessed to have awareness and self-love and we're doing well, that we can create infinity loops of helping one another through altruism. So I think it's more the biggest lesson I would say is that how precious life is. And, there's going to be a normal process of feeling states. You also have to go through all of the feelings. All of your feelings are valid. So let yourself have all of them, but then figure out how to use the energy of those feelings to keep moving on, to keep living, to keep creating, and having faith that one day you will be as healed as you can be from an unimaginable trauma.
So how does trying to create something positive out of the experience help the survivor?
Well, you have to have a will to live. To me, everything is a series of every day for all of us. There's different moments of crisis, stabilization, and thrive. So we have choices of how do we move forward? How do we create new experiences and opportunities? So I feel like the word positive, I feel like enjoying as many moments as you can, having inner peace, is living.
So how do people do that? How do they transmute this deep pain and betrayal into that peace?
Well, it's really a process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally, I'm just going to kind of reiterate, there's stages of grief, there's stages of acceptance, So you need to go through all of those. And everyone has different belief systems. So there's things that you can feel and experience in more of the earth realm. And then there's times when people have feelings or knowingness that there's something bigger than themselves. And I think when we come together as a sense of community and we actually learn how to lean in to our faith and lean into one another's help, that's when we do the most of the healing. And also if you have other people that you love, that you still want to be here on earth, it's really neat when you have, other family members that you want to see thrive. Like, it's like you have to move past the trauma. You can't live in the trauma.
Yeah. So how does someone know when they're recovered or as recovered as they can be?
I feel like the word peace keeps coming to mind. It's almost like, I'm just going to use a example of having like a sore throat. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, my voice is better and I'm okay. I feel like some people describe a depressive episode or a grief episode as things seem flat, they seem gray, they seem stale. They're just going through the motions. It feels like a heaviness, like you're almost like walking through molasses. And really, when you're at the highest level of possible healing from a loss that's unimaginable, you actually start to look forward to things, start to want to go do things. You start laughing, you start enjoying, you start imagining, you start creating, you start having hope. So it's like almost all the opposite feeling statements from grief, despair, anger, sadness. So it's just an awareness of a different feeling state that's more at peace and wanting to engage in life instead of just get through a day on earth or just muddle through.
Is there anything that you'd like to add that I didn't ask?
I want to say that healing is very personal, and you have to let yourself reach out for the help you need in that moment. And that's going to look different each day and also at different stages of processing the grief. So it's really coming back to trusting yourself to have greater awareness and greater self-love. And it's very personal. So reach out to doctors, mental health professionals, your spiritual leader, your legal team, but pace yourself. One of the things in listening to Jackie's statement, and this, I want to broaden this out for the world, is I think when you're trying to heal, it helps to have faith in something bigger than yourself. And for some people, that can be God, but for some people, it can be the idea of energy, love, and family systems. So I think one of the most important things whenever we're healing from something so unimaginable is to figure out what looks like love to us. What energy can we attract? What sense of community gives us like the will, for the feeling of humanity? And I feel like in her statement, her faith, and it sounds like a huge sense of community. And then this desire to protect her child that's still here. And just have the spirit, just knowing that, very, very strong. I would invite everyone to pay attention to different coincidences that they're really coincidences, unseen energy of when the phone call comes in, when we hear a song, if we want to believe in the concept that there's more that we can see, that there might be the possibility of energy. Some people call it angels, whatever you want to call it. I feel like she, in this process, went into her trauma, not only getting the help, but her own faith that there's a possibility that, the spirit of her daughter doesn't just live within her heart, but that's like protecting her. And I feel like a lot of people are on their own path when they're healing from such a loss, and that's going to look different. But I think faith and paying attention to the magic moments is something that really can get us all through something like really unimaginable.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Denise, thank you so much for your insights, and I appreciate your words of wisdom on this topic of unbelievable betrayal.
Thank you. And I'm sending much love to anyone that's ever experienced a betrayal, a loss, a tragic loss. And remember, too, that you're not alone. And thank you for the work you're doing, Donna. I really appreciate what you're doing.
I'm Donna Andersen, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Dr. Denise McDermott. To learn more about her, visit drdenisemd.com. And if you'd like to hear more of her insights and wisdom, listen to the Dr. Denise Show, which is available wherever you listen to podcasts. True Lovefraud Stories is produced by lovefraud.com. I'm the author of lovefraud.com. Engineering is by Terry Kelly. To learn how to recognize and recover from everyday sociopaths, visit lovefraud.com. And for more information about this story, other great stories, or if you'd like to share your story, visit podcasts.lovefraud.com.